Hello Year 3 and Year 4. How are you doing today? Welcome back to live English lessons with Mr. Phillips. Hope you're doing all right. It's time to do some reading today. So same rules apply as yesterday. I think you can hashtag me still at St. Anne's Live, and you can get me at St. Anne's Rainhill on Twitter. And if you need any help or want to submit any work or anything, you can send it to rsa.year6@3-saints.org.uk. Now, hopefully, you saw the announcement video that I put up last night about the reading lessons. Basically, for you to get the most out of them, it'd be really helpful for you to have a copy of the text with you, okay? So all the texts are available on lovereadingforkids.co.uk, and I'm putting a link in the description so you can click on it and it'll take you straight to the extract. But you have to have an account in order to be able to see the text. So you need to make sure you're registered for an account. It's completely free, but you need to get a parent or someone to do that for you. So if you've not done that already, pause and go and do that now. So once you've got an account and you've got the text, you should either have it open on a different device, if you've got like a spare iPad or something like that, and you can have a little look on there. You could do it on the same device that you're working on, and you can just switch between watching the video and keep listening to it and then go into the text. Obviously, remember, you can pause the video at any time to go and look at your text, or you can do what I've done and do a good old-fashioned printout copy. Obviously, I know that won't be sustainable for a long period of time, but I'm working on a way of how we can make this a little bit easier. Okay, so if you really can't get hold of a text, don't worry. Every so often I'm going to pick the camera up and show you what I'm looking at on the paper. So even if that you don't have it in front of you, you can still listen. You will have to listen really carefully, but you'll still be able to join in. Okay, so with our reading lessons, hopefully you should know this by now, we split our reading lessons into 4 separate parts, and these are the parts. We have got our predict section where we have a little bit of a guess about what the text is going to be about today, and we use some clues from the text to give us an idea, and we predict what we think is going to happen. We then clarify some of the more difficult vocabulary. We decide, right, what do these difficult words mean? So that when we read it again, we understand what's going on. We've then got our favourite bit, the questions, where I ask you some questions and we have a little go at trying to work out what the answers are and the techniques we can use to work out the answers. And then finally, the summary section, where we summarise everything we know about the book in different ways. Now, if you have a piece of paper, what I would do is I would recommend doing what I've done and split your page into 4 sections: a predict, a clarify, a summary, and a questions. The other way around, sorry, predict, clarify, questions, summary. And that way, when I ask you to do something, you can write it down on your piece of paper. And then you've got something you can email to me. Now, if you've not got a piece of paper today, that's absolutely fine. You can just pause and have a little think about the answers. But going forward, it'd be really good to have paper with you, just like you need to do in the writing session as well. Okay, so the text we're looking at today is called The Train Mouse. That's what we're looking at today. And all I'm going to show you for the predict section is the picture. That's all I'm going to show you, the title and the picture. So come with me, we flip it this way. There it is, The Train Mouse. Now hopefully you've not already read ahead. If you had, you'll know a little bit more than we know. So the first thing we need to do is predict what we think is going to happen in this text. And we're just going off the title and the picture. Now, predictions can be wrong. They're probably going to be wrong. A good prediction comes if it is based in evidence, okay? And you're using something from the text to support what you're saying. So we don't want to go, oh, I think this is going to be about aliens that come down and fly around. Well, there's nothing in there that would suggest aliens were coming, so we don't want to have those kind of predictions, okay? And when we're making our prediction, we always start with, I predict that. That's a good sentence starter. I predict that. So what I want you to do first is pause the video there and have a prediction. What do you think this book is going to be about? And you can either think about it or you can write it down in your predict section on your piece of paper, starting with I predict that. Off you go and do that for me now, while I have a quick sip of tea. Okay, so I'm going to do it now. So I predict, what do I predict this text is going to be about? Well, there's definitely going to be a train involved. And there's definitely going to be mice. And that picture, they seem to be hanging on a piece of string. So it feels like they're kind of put themselves in danger, and one doesn't look particularly happy while the other one does look quite happy. So maybe it's about two mice that live or stow away on a train, and they're taken to unusual places, or maybe they're taken to a dangerous place and they've got to try and escape. That's what I think it's going to be about. So I predict that this story is about mice. I think they hide on the train. That hide on a train and end up somewhere dangerous. That is my prediction. I predict that this story is about mice that hide on a train and end up somewhere dangerous. Doesn't matter if my prediction is different to your prediction or if it's exactly the same. It's what we predict is going to happen. Okay? So now we've predicted, it's time to read. Get your text somewhere in front of you where you can hear it and see it. And what we're going to do is I'm going to read the text to you. I'm not going to show you it this time, but when we come back to our answers later on, we will. Now, we're not going to... I probably should have said this at the beginning. Sorry if you've printed the whole thing out. At least you got it to read now. We're not going to read the whole thing. We're just reading chapter 1 because it's quite long otherwise. Okay? Here we go. Where did you go for all that time? Did you really go to Paris? Where did you hide on the train? I get asked the same questions every day, and then I have to tell everyone about my adventures all over again. I'm even receiving letters now, asking me the easiest way to travel to Paris. So, to save having to keep explaining it all, I've decided to write my story down. I'm an ordinary house mouse, and my name is Stefan, but everyone calls me Nibbles. How did I end up with such a funny nickname? Well, when I was very young, I had a habit of gnawing tree trunks, just like a beaver. My parents were puzzled. Sometimes my father wondered if I even was a proper mouse at all. But then, as I got older, all the gnawing suddenly stopped. I must have realised that my little mouse teeth could never fell a tree. I was born in the city of Munich, in Germany, on Paradise Street. In case you were thinking I made that name up, you can have a look at a map of Munich, and there you'll see Paradise Street. It's a real street, but sadly the house I was born in is no longer there. It was such a beautiful old house, surrounded by new and very tall buildings. Behind our house there was a little courtyard, and in the courtyard there were 2 elderberry bushes. We, the mouse family, lived in the cellar of the house. My mother, my father, my grandfather, and my brothers and sister. My brothers are called Big Tooth, Short Tail, and White Paw, and my little sister is Lily Fay. Above us lives an old man whose name was Mr. Ehlers we're going with, and he had a cat named Carlo. Sometimes you could hear a dreadful screeching and barking in the yard. That meant that Isengrim, I'm going for Isengrim, had come down and was chasing Carlo. Isengrim was a poodle, and he lived in the attic with an artist called Mr. Kringle. Mr. Kringle painted pictures and liked to eat cheese and white bread. That made him very popular with us mice. Isengrim used to be in a circus, and he'd seen a lot of the world. He could walk on 2 legs, and sometimes, if we mice children asked him, he'd do a somersault for us. He was very friendly to us mice, and got on well with all kinds of creatures. Except cats. He hated cats. And that wasn't just because he was a dog. There was another reason for that. You see, Isengrim had spent 2 years performing in a circus with a cat. The cat lay in a pram wearing a little baby's bonnet, and Isengrim, who was wearing a little white dress, had to push her around the ring. Although the cat would always hiss nasty remarks at him, no fur was allowed to fly. He just had to keep on pushing her around in a circle in front of the whole audience. Then, one evening, he could contain himself no longer. She whispered, "My goodness, Isengrim, you look so silly in that short dress with your crooked legs." So he let go of the pram and sprung at her. The cat leaped out of the pram and ran into the rows of seats. Isengrim chased her through the circus tent. The people jumped up, laughing and screaming. Isengrim wasn't allowed to perform any more after that, and the ringmaster sold him to Mr. Kringle. That was why Carlo the tomcat suffered, for the malice of the circus cat. Isengrim was normally calm and friendly, but his eyes glittered dangerously whenever he spotted Carlo. "A cat is a cat, they're all the same," he'd say furiously. We agreed with him, but Carlo was really old by then, and, to tell the truth, he was very friendly. My granddad sometimes said, "Leave old Carlo alone, he's worn his claws right out these days." Grandad and Carlo had grown up together in the house on Paradise Street. Grandad always used to say, "Once upon a time in the old days, Carlo was a very dangerous mouser. He used to sit outside a mouse hole for hours, quiet as a mouse himself. And then, when you thought he couldn't possibly still be there, and you crept out, his claws would strike as fast as lightning. That's how I lost all my brothers and sisters." Then Grandad would sit silently for a moment before continuing. "Carlo almost got me once. I was just about able to dive into the mouse hole, but I didn't pull my tail in time. Cha!" And he bit it off. And every time he told us about the dangers of cats, he'd hold up his stumpy tail as a warning. Cats are dangerous. But like I said, Carlo had grown old by then, and old Mr. Ehlers brought him plenty of meat from the butcher, so the cat spent most of his time sitting sated and sleepy on the windowsill, warming his old paws in the sun. But sometimes, only rarely, the passion for hunting would seize him. Then he'd suddenly run after one of us mice, but only slowly, as if he were dreaming. All the same, we mouse children were only allowed into the yard if Grandad or Isengrim was there. Then Grandad would sit on the sun too, beside Carlo, but not too close, and the two elderly animals would chat, talking about how things used to be. So that is the opening chapter of The Train Mouse, okay? First thing we're going to do is we're going to do some clarifying now. So I've picked out a couple of trickier words that I think would be really important to have a little look at. The first one is the word malice. Malice, like that. The next one is the word sated, spelt like that, sated. And then the final one is the word elderly. Now, we want to clarify what these words mean. So the first one is malice. It says on, I think it's on this page with the picture of the with the man painting. It says, "That was why Carlo the tomcat suffered, for the malice of the circus cat." Okay, so I wonder what malice means. If someone is filled with malice, or has their actions are described as being filled with malice. If you think you know, pause the video and next to the word malice in your clarify section, write down what you think it means. So malice means to want to cause somebody harm or pain. If you do something with malice, you're doing it intentionally to hurt them or to upset them. That's why you might say, "Oh, it was, his actions were filled with malice when he pushed that child over," or you might call it malicious. That's like the adjective version. Or his behaviour is extremely malicious. That comes from the idea of malice, the idea of wanting to cause someone pain. So that's why it's describing the cat as malice. The next one is sated, and that is on the last page, I believe. It says that, yes, on the last page it says, Carlo, so the cat spent most of his time sitting sated and sleepy on the windowsill. So sated and sleepy. So an old, comfy, well-fed cat would be sated. We could say that, a family, on the evening of Christmas or something, sitting down in front of the TV after being fed was sated. If you think you know what sated means, pause the video and write it next to the word in your clarify section. So sated means to be satisfied, to be full of satisfaction. If you're sated, then you are completely content and happy with everything. You know, oh, I'm very sated. You know, it might be after food, or it might be after a particularly lovely day. Yeah, sated means to be completely satisfied and completely happy with how things are. And that's why Carlo the cat was sitting like that. He was sleepy and sated. He was happy and content. Final one, elderly. It says on the very last page again that the two elderly creatures sat together talking about how things used to be. If you think you know what elderly means, pause the video and write next to it what you think it means. So, elderly means to be an elder, which means to be older. Yeah, so something that is described as elderly, or if someone is an elder, it means that they are older. Okay, so it's just a better word for saying that someone is old. Yeah, so we've got malice, to mean to cause harm, sated, to be satisfied and happy, and elderly, to be older. Yeah, 3 really good pieces of vocabulary there. So now we have predicted, we've read, and we have clarified some vocabulary. It's time to answer some questions. So make sure you've got something to write on, and I'm not going to write the questions down. I'll model some answers, but I'm going to tell the questions to you. We're going to do them verbally, so you've got to really be listening. Okay? So question number 1 about the text. Why did Stefan's dad question if he was a real mouse? Why did Stefan's dad question whether he was a real mouse? Okay, so that's a find and retrieve question. You need to go and see if you can find that bit in the text and then explain to me why that happened. Why did Stefan's dad question if he was a real mouse or not? Pause the video there and see if you can find that answer for me. Okay, so I remember this happened on the second page when Stefan was telling us about his family. So if we take the camera, here you come with me, and we look at this chunk here, we can see, here it is. My parents were puzzled. Sometimes my father wondered if I was even a proper mouse at all. But then as I got older, all the gnawing suddenly stopped. So what were they talking about? So let's get the other page. What was he doing? Oh, because everyone had called him Nibbles. And he was gnawing tree trunks. And that puzzled his parents. So the answer to the question of why did Stefan's father question if he was even a real mouse is because he was gnawing tree trunks. Can you remember what animal it said he was gnawing tree trunks? Like gnawing is into to bite and to nibble. It said he was like a beaver. So to question 1, why did Stefan's dad question if he was even a real mouse? Because, and I don't mind just using because for today. We've got limited space, haven't we? Because Stefan would... Now let's use the vocabulary from the text. So let's use gnaw. Would gnaw on wood like a beaver. Perfect. And that is why the dad would question if he was even a real mouse or not. Next one. This one could have a lot of different answers. Number 2 is, can you tell me 2 facts about Stefan's old house? 2 facts about Stefan's old house, okay? Go and find in the text where it talks about Stefan's house, Stefan's old house. And then find and retrieve 2 facts. Now remember, don't find me facts about the mice. Find me facts about the house. Don't find me facts about the houses that surrounded it. Find me facts about Stefan's old house. Pause the video there and see if you can find those answers for me. Okay, should have a little look. Now again, I remembered this happened somewhere very close to the answer we've just found on that second page. So again, come with me. Let's have a little look into the text. Let's have a little look here. Where was it talking about? It was here where it was talking about Paradise Street, wasn't it? It
So it's a real street, but sadly, the house I was born in is no longer there. Oh, well, I suppose that's a fact, isn't it? The fact that the house is no longer there. It was a beautiful old house. Now, beautiful is not a fact; it's an opinion, so we won't use that. Old house. Could possibly say it was an old house. It was surrounded by new and tall buildings. So that's even though that's talking about the buildings surrounding it, it is actually telling it's a fact about the house because it's surrounded by them. Behind our house there was a small little courtyard. So another fact might be that it has a little courtyard, and it has 2 elderberry bushes in it. So those are all facts we could say about the house. We could even say it had a mouse family living in it. All of those are facts about Stefan's old house. So let's put 2. We only need to write 2. We found quite a few, but we only need 2. So I think the 2 I'm going to use are, I like the first one because I think the first one that we found was one that's a little bit more tricky to find and not as many people would have found it. So number 2, the house is no longer there. The house isn't there anymore. That's a fact about the house. Another fact, it has 2 elderberry bushes. Perfect. But you could have had any of those answers we looked at. I bet some of you probably would have found some other ones that we didn't even talk about. So there are 2 facts about the house. Okay, ready to get a little bit more tricky? Okay, here we go. Why was Mr. Kringle popular with the mice? Why was Mr. Kringle popular with the mice? Now this, I've said here, is a 2-mark question. So both of these get you 1 mark each. But this is a 2-mark question. So this, you have to write 2 things. Why was Mr. Kringle popular with the mice? So you have to tell me why, and then you have to explain your answer. Point evidence. Have a little go. Why was Mr. Kringle popular with mice? Point evidence. Pause the video there and see if you can find it. Okay, so let's have a little look. So remember, this was a little bit later on, potentially about page 3 of our text, maybe. Let's have a little look. It wasn't on this page anymore. Skimming and scanning from, oh, there's his name. Oh, very popular with his mouse. I was just using my skimming and scanning skills there to find that phrase. I'm going to read that paragraph now. Isengrim was a poodle and he lived in the attic with an artist called Mr. Kringle. Mr. Kringle painted pictures and liked to eat cheese and white bread. That made him very popular with us mice. Right. So is it the fact that he painted pictures that made him popular with the mice? Or was it the fact that he liked to eat cheese and white bread? I think it was that meant he was popular. And why would that make him popular? Well, because those are foods, especially cheese, that mice like. So the fact that he was eating cheese and mice like cheese and would have been attracted to the cheese, those are our 2 pieces of 2 answers that we need for our 2 marks. Perfect. So let's have a look. Number 3. Why was Mr. Kringle popular with the mice? He was popular as he always ate cheese. So that would be 1 mark, but now I need to add a bit more on. So there would have been lots of cheese for the mice. And that is my 2 mark. Lots of cheese for the mice. Perfect. 1 mark, he was popular as he always ate cheese. And then your 2nd mark, and that would have made him popular with the mice because there would have been lots of cheese for those mice to eat. Okay. Well done if you got that one. That's hard. Remember, if you just got 1 bit of that, you can still have 1 mark.
One last question, number 4, and it's a true or false question. And I would like you to put your evidence as well about how you know it's true or false. So, the question is, well, it's not, it's a statement, and you have to tell me if it's true or false. Carlo's hunting days are over. True or false? Carlo's hunting days are over. True or false? Go back to your text and see if you can find some evidence to support an answer either way. Are Carlo's hunting days long behind him and all over, or not? Pause the video there, write true or false, and see if you can support your answer with evidence. True because, false because. Okay, right. Let's have a little look. Now, this is definitely on the last page. It was one of the last things that was said about Carlo and his hunting habits. So one last time, over we come. Let's have a little look here. Oh, here it is. So he spent most of his time sitting sated and sleepy on the windowsill. Well, that probably does mean that his hunting days are over. But sometimes, only rarely, the passion for hunting would seize him, and then he'd suddenly run after one of us mice, but only slowly as if he were dreaming. Ah, right. So, has his hunting days completely finished? Well, no, it would be suggested that that was false, because every so often, even if it is only rarely, and even if it is almost like he's dreaming, every so often he gets the instinct to chase some of the mice. So, Carlo's hunting days are over. That is false. Actually, I'm going to put a little asterisk, and I'm going to write my evidence up here, because I don't want to squeeze everything down there. And it's false because Carlo still might chase the mice. Even if it is only rarely happening, he still might chase the mice. This has been knocked out of the way. There we go. Okay. So there we go. We've now answered 4 questions about this text. So we've predicted, we've read the text, we've clarified, and now we've answered some questions. So we've got one last section to do, which is our summary section, where we try and sum up everything that we've read so far. So I'm just going to quickly rub out the answer that I've put there, just so that I've got a bit of space to write. I would like you, for your summary today, to tell me one thing that you know about these 4 key characters. We've got Stefan. What do you know about Stefan? We've got Carlo. We've got, oh, needs to be a colon, not a semicolon. We've got Isengrim. And we've got Grandad Mouse. Now, there are other characters, but those are the ones that I would like you to talk about. Grandad Mouse. So for your summary, and it only needs to be a couple of words, what do we know about those characters? Now, what I don't want is, he's a mouse, he's a cat, he's a dog, he's also a mouse. Let's try and be a bit more challenging. Tell me something else that you know. And what I'll do is I won't go through this one. See if you can write a couple of things, or just one thing each, about these characters that you know. And then if you're someone who sends their work in to me, or takes a picture and tags me on Twitter, then I'll be able to see your answers then. And I'll be able to see who's summarised the text really, really well. So fabulous. You've done a fab job. You've got a lot of this text in the extra that I've given you. You actually got the second chapter as well. So if you liked it, you can carry on reading it. And on Love Reading for Kids, it actually gives you a link of where you can buy the books as well if you're really, really keen on them. So you've done some great work today. We have predicted, we have read the book, we have clarified, we've answered some questions, and now you guys are going to summarise for me. Okay, thank you so much again for being back with us, and we'll be back again tomorrow, same time, for our second writing lesson, and I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Bye, 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 bye.